Today we're going to talk about Terry Sanderson, and he's the guy that was suing Gwyneth Paltrow for the skiing crash accident. Greg wants to tell us about the videos we're going to watch.
Yeah, this is simply a bunch of direct and cross from Paltrow's defense, and it doesn't turn out pretty. We know how the trial ends, but you really want to watch this.
The truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Okay.
Mr. Sanderson, we met before. We didn't finish, so we're trying to work our way in. I'm on a 30-minute clock, so I'm going to try to ask questions very directly and just have you say yes or no.
If I can, I will.
Did you, upon filing your lawsuit in a press conference, compare my client to King Kong coming out of the jungle? Yes or no?
That was not my intention.
Did you do that? Did I make up those words, or are those your words to the press?
I'm not sure, but probably sounds familiar.
Do you dispute it?
I dispute my intentions, that's all.
King Kong coming out of the jungle.
Press conference.
Pardon?
Press conference. I was pretty...
Did you say those words about my client?
I meant to say King Kong just chased someone out of the jungle. That's what I meant.
Did you refer to her as Godzilla to your daughter?
I did not. I don't remember that.
She testified to that.
I don't remember that. It's gone. Sorry.
You told everyone it was a hit and run, right? Wrote to your own hometown newspaper and said, she hit and ran me.
I did say that.
And that's been dismissed by this court. You understand that?
Yes, I guess so. Yes.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, okay, so he swears in there, and we can see the hands are not fully splayed in the fingers, just a little bit of a Vulcan salute, I think, going on there. Now, some people do say, you know, if the hands are more splayed, there's a little more confidence there. Maybe the person is going to tell more truth. If they're tighter together, maybe less so. Hand goes to the chest afterwards as he walks away. That's quite a sincere move. Look, I don't know, but try it out for yourself. Picture yourself in front of a judge, swearing yourself in, splay your hands and then bring them closer together. Which one feels more honest to you? I mean, your feelings aren't necessarily his feelings, but give it a go as a bit of theory of mind. One last thing about this, already has started out with this idea that we had in the last show about this of the big and the small, and we've got Paltrow there being shown as Godzilla and King Kong. I mean, you got the king, you got God. It's all big, large, immense, and of high status. As Chase said in our last episode about this, it's maybe not a good maneuver to put her, you know, as you know, honestly, good looking as she is, into this big, bad, immense, evil character. She's not Kratos from God of War. I mean, if the person being sued here did look like Kratos from God of War, that would work well on a jury. But in this case, she isn't in the looking for that. So, you know, not the best move, I would agree, from last time, Chase. So, Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, agree with you as well. Right here, we're seeing what I would call subservient and submissive posture. And the way you can see this are the ears in front of the heart. Is the heart in front of the pelvis? They should be in a line, ideally. But he's all the way leaned forward, just hunched forward. And this is kind of a subservient behavior. And he gets up there, we see a little more of this. There's some unnecessary adjustments to the microphone. And these kind of adjustments tend to signal a need for feeling of control, which also kind of signals the person's likely feeling that they don't have much control. And it shows a micro expression of contempt here. And this shows us that it's not always like the internet's going to tell you. They're not always 100% identical. But he shows a little vulnerability with an eyebrow flash there. And this hand to chest gesture tends to indicate when someone's being sincere or someone's been trained to do it to appear sincere. There's a chance Some of what we're going to see tonight is due to his memory issue, which could be Alzheimer's, could be a whole lot of things that we're all going to get into. But this is that he might also believe what you're about to hear in the coming videos, and he thinks it's truthful. This is known as what's called sincere lying, or also known as unconscious lying, which refers to the situation where a person is not deliberately trying to deceive other people, but rather they themselves believe in what they're saying, even if it's not true. I just want to put it out there. There's a chance that that might be true, and we may figure that out by the end here. Greg?
Yeah, I'm not sure that he believes half this, but I think he's the smartest guy he knows for a while. And I think he's going to try some of that, and he's going to get his rear end handed to him in the process. That's what I think we're going to see a little bit of, just because I think he's a little bit of that up front. I think that is intentional. I think he puts his hand to his chest. He's very solicitous. I agree with you. When he is putting his head forward, look, there is nothing you can do that is more compromising than putting your little skull into someone's striking range and your eyes down. That's the ultimate in subservience. So he's solicitous, and then as he leans in to talk to the judge, and then he turns and he does a big smile, which is awkward and out of place when the judge or when the attorney first starts talking. That goes away pretty quickly. You guys always talk about fleeting emotions. That one's gone very quickly when he realizes what's happening. He has avoidance and a qualifier when he says it wasn't my intention. Well, maybe it wasn't your intention. Did you say that? And this attorney is pretty good at pushing him. Then he does distancing when he says, I'm not sure. That probably sounds familiar. How much more time do you need to answer a question? That's pretty running and long. There's that nervous smile at I dispute my intentions, where that his head bobbles in uncertainty, his lips compress, and he blows off air as he says the press conference. And he raises both shoulders. And Chase, this is your socializing something. He's socializing. Everybody exaggerates in a press conference. That's what he's doing. Then you see his blink rate go through the roof. When he realizes that this is not working, I think we start to see it then. And he says, I did not, and does a rapid change to I don't remember. That's a big deal. That's a change in here. I think he's gotten away with saying a lot of things and not ever having to own up to it. And we're going to see him have to deal with some of that here. After that's gone, he reaches for that mic. He adapts it. When he says it's gone, then there's an absolute discomfort and a retreat, and his pitch and his tone and his cadence all change as his smile goes away. Scott, what do you got?
All right. I really like this group of videos we're doing, because we see a great example of what I'm going to call refuting, regret, and then acceptance. And that happens in almost every video. When the questions start, he's like, no. And he's like, I shouldn't have said that. It's like, well, I guess you're right. So that's pretty much, we're going to see that in almost every video here. As well, this is a fantastic study. If you're into micro expressions and you follow Ms. Ozell and all the stuff that Ekman does, pay attention to this video, because this is full of, you're going to see micro expressions of anger, fear. What else is there? There's contempt. Everything is in this. We see them all. Some of them last longer than the classic time span for a micro expression, but still they're there. So it's going to be a good example for you to watch that. And then when he first comes up to the judge and tells him he's got a lozenge, he makes sure that he's at eye level, just right at eye level or just a little bit below, so it seems even for him. Then when he sits down, he starts into all this stuff that shows he's a cute little man. He starts all that and smiling and all that stuff. Come on, man. So he's trying to get this attorney to like him. I don't think he's worried about the jury. I think he's focused on this attorney. And we're going to, as we go through here, we're going to see what it looks like when someone has not been trained in a witness. They haven't been prepared to be a witness. And we're going to see what that looks like. And it is hilarious as we go through, because there's so many things that are missing from this. One of the main things we're going to see missing from this are objections from his attorneys. I don't think he spent much time with his attorneys at all. I think they thought this was an open and shut thing. They were going to go ahead and they would win, just like they thought they'd win the $3 million. They came back and said, no, we're not doing that. He's like, okay, I'll take $300,000. They're like, no, we're not doing that either. Not only that, I just want $1 and you're going to pay for my attorneys. How's that sound? So I think she came at this aggressively with malice toward him, even though she's not going for the money for herself. She didn't need that money from him. He doesn't have any money, but she's going after to get up his hind end in his wallet. I think, making him pay for her attorneys. And I think she got on the phone with her attorneys after he had seen, and her attorney probably knew who these attorneys were. And said, "Listen, this isn't going to be anything, man. Let's go do this. I swear I can do this by myself." So that's what it looks like to me as we go through here. Everybody good?
Yeah, all good.
The eyewitness is you.
The truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Okay.
Mr. Sanderson, we met before. We didn't finish, so we're trying to work our way in. I'm on a 30-minute clock, so I'm going to try to ask questions very directly and just have you say yes or no.
If I can, I will.
Did you, upon filing your lawsuit in a press conference, compare my client to King Kong coming out of the jungle? Yes or no?
That was not my intention.
Did you do that? Did I make up those words, or are those your words to the press?
I'm not sure, but probably sounds familiar.
Do you dispute it?
I dispute my intentions. That's all.
King Kong coming out of the jungle.
Press conference.
Pardon?
Press conference. I was pretty...
Did you say those words about my client?
I meant to say King Kong just chased someone out of the jungle. That's what I meant.
Did you refer to her as Godzilla to your daughter?
I did not. I don't remember that.
She testified to that.
I don't remember that. It's gone. Sorry.
You told everyone it was a hit and run, right? Wrote to your own hometown newspaper and said, she hit and ran me.
I did say that.
And that's been dismissed by this court. Do you understand that?
Yes, I guess so. Yes.
Did you say when you said decided that you had been hit from behind that you felt like you were flying?
I didn't know how else to describe it.
Yes.
I was weightless, yes.
You told me about 3 near-death experiences after the collision. True?
I did, yes.
One was where you knocked yourself out, and you were out a long time because the whatever had melted had actually warped the wood floor. Do you remember this?
I did, yes.
Did you seek medical care for that?
No, wasn't tuned in.
Did you think you were out at least 45 minutes?
At the time I did, but now I've come to conclusion that it was 2:30 in the morning and I just wiped up all the water on the floor and I didn't get it all. I think that's what caused the swelling. It usually takes about 45 minutes, so I'm pretty sure that would be impossible to be out.
Did you think it was important for you to maybe go see a doctor and having hit your head and being out for a long period enough that the water warped the wood floor?
At the time I thought that, but I was not making good decisions, and that sort of near-death experience happened twice again.
Another near-death experience was you were cutting a cardboard box and cut your leg. Is that true?
With the box cutter, yes. Through the femoral artery. Looked like a murder scene.
And then a third near-death experience was an accidental overdose of medications.
Yes.
And they had to give you Narcan because you'd taken OxyContin and Tramadol. Is that right?
I didn't know I'd taken Tramadol. I took just the OxyContin that I had for my ribs, actually. My ribs being broken from the ski accident.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
So we're seeing some body narration here. Right when he describes this feeling of weightlessness, we see him perfectly timed describe this. So I think his remembering feeling weightless at one point during this impact is truthful. And he's saying it looked like a murder scene. And there's a head shaking that takes place way too late. And let's talk about the neuroscience behind this. And if it's important to you, I got a few certifications in neuroscience and neuroendocrinology. What can happen in an accident like this, especially after a concussion, is something called white matter shearing. And this is like a tearing or stretching of the axons. This is the things at the end of our neurons that make up the white matter of the brain. and it's often caused by like a TBI or traumatic brain injury. And when these axons are damaged, communication between different regions of the brain can be disrupted. And this can lead to a range of cognitive neurological symptoms like the one with difficulty with memory, attention, language, behavior changes, motor control issues. And it doesn't have to be a victim to have hit his head. So I'm not saying that. But there may be something going on with his brain, but he does not have to have been a victim for that to have happened. That's not what I'm trying to say. And we're going to talk about this more in just a couple of minutes. Scott?
All right. Let's notice how he leans back when he's talking. He's getting away from that answer because he's not comfortable with it. That suggests there's an issue there for him. When he's starting to answer, when he starts getting back a little bit. And towards the end, you'll start noticing how he's moving away. He's like angling himself away from the front part of his torso away. So that's sort of like a protective thing you do. If you're not really feel safe or good about the person you're talking to, quite often you'll do this, except when, let's say you're meeting somebody and you walk up and you go, hey, and you're looking straight on like this. You'll notice people will turn to the side as they talk. It's because it doesn't look so confrontational. So I don't think it's not because he doesn't want to look confrontational. I think it's because he feels like he needs to protect himself. So he's angling just a little bit. And I don't think he understands what near-death experiences are. You may run into somebody in your life once or twice that have had a near-death experience, and they'll tell you about it. This guy's had 3 since this ski accident, So I don't know what's up with this guy. Theoretically, if we took his perspective, we could say we all have near-death experiences every day if we drive on a 2-lane road because there's a car about 8 feet away going just as fast as you are, and it passes you, missed you. Boy, if it come over that 8 feet, then you'd be dead. So that would be a near-death experience. Also, when he's talking about taking OxyContin is it cotton or cotton?
Contin.
Oh, Contin. Okay, OxyContin. So when he's talking about taking that, he took it after his ribs had healed. Did you hear what he said? He was talking about it as though I was taking it because, when I had my ribs were broken. That's why he has it. He didn't take it all. So he's taking it for some other reason. And I had to come and Narcan him because he OD'd on it. I don't think this is the smartest guy in the world. So, okay, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So you felt like you'd been flying. So he has been telling this story of he takes off. Well, that's hyperbole. And think about the type of personality that uses hyperbole. He might fit into that kind of personality that likes to tell a story and make it a little more grandiose, a little bigger, maybe. I read a great article. I think it was in The Guardian. So now everybody will be going, oh, I knew you were a Guardian reader. I just kind of came across it. And it was talking about the force that would be needed in order to launch somebody on a ski slope into the air. So they literally flew. And it was quite a force and wasn't any kind of force that Gwyneth Paltrow or any human being actually would be able to create in any way. So I love that. If you can find the article, pin it down below because it was a superb article. Now, oh, by the way, after he says that you went flying, we see disgust in the face. And we see a placating smile at the same time. So already we've got these collisions of gestures in the face coming along. Lots of movement in the chair. The stories keep changing. Disgust in the mouth grooming as well. Inside with the tongue. Look, I think we've got somebody who isn't entirely comfortable with their own story. One of those stories I want to just pick on just as a bit of, help for everybody. When you have a box cutter and you are opening a package, never cut towards yourself. It's like schoolboy error, always just any knife. If you're unpackaging something, cut away from yourself. General good rule. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Well, yeah, let's take it even a step further. If it is your femoral artery you cut, which is a pretty significant thing, you're cutting toward your groin with a box knife. That's a little bit that's a little bit odd, but let's just talk for a minute about that. When he's talking about the blood and all that kind of thing, he's got contempt. There's a half smile. And when he's talking about the OxyContin, he's got a half smile and he's front of the mouth talking. We always say, that front of the mouth like that. And so when he's doing that, that makes me suspicious and not trust what he's saying there. Also, when he's talking about cutting his femoral artery with a box knife, okay, I would want to ask some questions. Of course, you don't really need to, because this guy's going to take care of it himself. This guy's going to talk him into a hole so much, he would do better just to raise his hand and go, hey. Just this is the beginning of it. He probably would do better just say, I was wrong. And he does. Here's the most beautiful thing that happens in this video. We always talk about it. Every person has to deconflict their lie internally, and you can look for indicators they're doing it as they're talking. Well, guess what? This guy deconflicts his lie right out in public. So we get to watch what he's going to do, and we can watch him deconflicting later when he's trying to deconflict a story, because his cadence shifts. I'll go back and hit a couple of the others in a minute, but as he gets to that point where he says, come to the conclusion. He says, I come to the conclusion that his cadence shifts. He starts to slow. His brow goes up. He swivels in his chair. He starts to give throwaway information, too much information. And then he eye blocks. He does disdain at the situation he's in. He does real short head nods. He's not lying. He's undoing a lie. It takes the same effort and the same body language to undo a lie publicly as it does to deconflict it in your head. So he's giving us all of his signs right here. So we get to watch for this coming ahead. The other thing that you watch is he's got a different pitch, new levels of movement as he describes any of this stuff when he's talking about this box knife or that kind of thing. I saw as well, Mark, that disgust in his nose and defending not what to say. And that grimace of acceptance when the guy was saying to him, where are you flying? He's like, well, I guess I'm going to bind here. Just say, yeah, maybe I made that up. Maybe I was exaggerating. That would do you a lot of good right now. That's all I got.
All right. If you don't know who we are, we're the Behavior Panel. And I'm Scott Rouse. I'm a body language expert and analyst, and I train law enforcement in the military in interrogation and body language. And I created the #1 online body language course, Body Language Tactics, with Greg Hartley. Mark?
I'm Mark Bowden. I'm an expert in human behavior and body language, help people all over the world to stand out, win trust, gain credibility every time they communicate, including some of the leaders of the G7. Chase.
My dog's barking. But I'm Chase Hughes. I did 20 years in the U.S. military. I wrote the #1 best-selling book on influence, persuasion, and behavior profiling. And I teach people those things today. Greg?
Greg Hartley. I'm a former Army interrogator, interrogation instructor, resistance to interrogation instructor. I've written 10 books on body language and behavior, including one that is now currently in the top 10 business negotiation books, the most dangerous business book you'll ever read, and put together this body language tactics course with Scott.
Dog's going to on the piano. Hang on a second.
What did he say? What did he say?
Dog's going to take a shit on the computer.
Oh, I thought he said that.
The eyewitness is you.
Did you say when you said decided that you had been hit from behind that you felt like you were flying?
I didn't know how else to describe it. I was weightless, yes.
You told me about 3 near-death experiences after the collision. True?
I did, yes.
One was where you knocked yourself out, and you were out a long time because whatever had melted had actually warped the wood floor. Do you remember this?
I did, yes.
Did you seek medical care for that?
No, wasn't tuned in.
Did you think you were out at least 45 minutes?
At the time I did, but now I've come to conclusion that it was 2:30 in the morning and I just wiped up all the water on the floor and I didn't get it all. I think that's what caused the swelling. It usually takes about 45 minutes, so I'm pretty sure that would be impossible to be out.
Did you think it was important for you to maybe go see a doctor and having hit your head and being out for a long period enough that the water warped the wood floor?
At the time I thought that, but I was not making good decisions, and that sort of near-death experience happened twice again.
Another near-death experience was you were cutting a cardboard box and cut your leg. Is that true?
With the box cutter, yes. Through the femoral artery. Looked like a murder scene.
And then a third near-death experience was an accidental overdose of medications.
Yes.
And they had to give you Narcan because you'd taken OxyContin and Tramadol. Is that right?
I didn't know I'd taken tramadol. I took just the OxyContin that I had for my ribs. Actually, my ribs were being broken from the ski accident.
And you blame Miss Paltrow for all 3 of those near-death experiences after. True?
I don't know if I said.
Are you claiming it right now in this lawsuit?
Yes. Very unusual for me not to make good decisions, medical decisions.
I think I'll reserve my remaining time for redirect. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, this is not a lot, but there's an interesting thing he does here. His chin is set and lowered to protect his neck. His body is facing one direction and his head the other. His body is facing that judge. I wonder if he thinks, or maybe it's his attorneys, and he thinks that's a rescue. We say feet often go where the brain wants to be, and he's probably one to run to help. Just what I would say just from looking at that. And he's odd. His posture is different and his movement is different. It's more frozen and rigid, and his lips purse after very unusual. That's disapproval when he's talking about at forced to respond as well. That's all I got. Chase, what do you got on that?
Yeah, in all of our videos, I'm always talking. I'm harping on, like, you need to look for what's missing, what's concealed, what's not there. So you're seeing in this video, in our opinion, this entire video is our opinion. He initially tries to avoid the question until he's pressed into providing an answer. And in this video, the confidence in Gwyneth Paltrow's guilt isn't there. His confidence only spikes with his certainty about the injury and not the certainty of guilt. So what's missing here is the same confidence in the injury as there is in the guilt. Not there. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so look, just in case you wonder what on earth we're doing here, we're doing behavioral analysis. And so what analysis looks for is things like what's missing or things like what's changed. It's almost like diagnosis in some cases. You go to your doctor and you go, doctor, it hurts. And the doctor goes, well, what have you been doing that you weren't doing before? Looking for what's missing, what's changed, and a whole bunch of other things that are part of critical thinking. So look, in my mind, what we're doing is based on science, but what we're doing is analysis. So you take things that you see, you take knowledge that you know, you put it all together, and you go, here's some output, some analytic output. So here's a bit of an analytic output here. He says, he self-reports, very unusual for me not to make good medical decisions. Now, look, he's either true or untrue or telling the truth or not telling the truth. I don't know. I'm not a mind reader. I don't know his life. But you can analyze that and you can go, well, if that is true, if usually he would make good medical decisions and now he's not, although we've seen his problems with the box cutters, but, maybe he's been better with box cutters in his past. If there is a radical change in behavior, self-reported, but it may be true, well, there could be some trauma to his brain, because trauma to your brain will radically change your behavior. Now, just like Chase was saying, I'm not saying it's because of hitting his head during any ski accident. Could have happened at any point. But when that happens, you can get a quite fast degradation in capacity. And so all kinds of behavioral change. So the only question that I still have is, so why this change in behavior? Is it to do with this accident? Is it to do with something else? I don't know, but it's worth looking at throughout, and I'll be keeping my eye on that. Is there any other evidence here that says some kind of trauma has happened at any point that will take him to the cognitive level that he's at right now? Because many people will rightly look at it and go, I'm not sure he's cognitively all together. Is it because of some trauma? Is it because of something else? Let's dig into that. Scott, what do you got on this one?
All right, I agree with you. And I think somebody who's had that many near-death experiences between the time he had that accident and got to court, he's had a bunch more before that. And I would suppose that a lot of that has to do with hitting his head, obviously, or I would think. I don't know. How would I know that? But if your theory is true, then I would suppose that he's had a lot of head trauma. And actually, he does talk about falling, hitting his head, and things like that as well. But on this one, this is where I think it's dawned on him that he's in trouble. He's in big trouble. So he starts locking down. And that's like Greg was talking about. So we see that chin come down, he's answering, and he starts turning even a little bit more away from the attorney. Then we see, after that first answer, we see a micro expression of anger. So get in there and look at that. This next time around, look for that thing, because it's pretty big. So get in there and take a look at that. And this is where I decided that it wasn't just he didn't talk to his attorneys about that first part. I don't think he had tight communication with them at all. And this is where I went, you know what? Something's up with this. This guy has not communicated well with his attorneys, because nobody would let him give some of the answers he gave on that. No attorney in their right mind, and it's just my opinion, would let their client do that. He's had no witness prep at all, not even a little bit. I mean, things he's seen on TV or something, but he's not ready to be put on the stand like that. They shouldn't let him do that. All right, we good?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go with Chase because you look so serious.
Oh, I'll brighten up then.
And you're muted.
I did the classic thumb to lip routine.
I saw that. That's what did it for you.
I could teach you guys. It'd take about 3 hours, but
the eyewitness is you.
From the ski accident.
And you blame Miss Paltrow, for all three of those near-death experiences after, true?
I don't know if I said
Are you
that.
claiming it right now in this lawsuit?
Yes, very unusual for me not to make good decisions, medical decisions.
I think I'll reserve my remaining time for redirect. Thank you, Your Honor. Do you realize you are the reason your life has been exposed to the world? You, not Miss Paltrow.
I'm realizing that now, yes. Painful.
Do you remember, you've said you've shrunk and lost weight since the incident, right?
Well, I gained, I ballooned.
Now, when we stand you up, you've lost like 15 pounds and shrunk 3 inches, right? Yes or no?
I had no idea. I guess yes. I was
just a few days ago. You said I was 175 to 80 and 5'8". Remember?
I said that not here. Oh, you know what?
In this very trial.
Overruled.
I know why I said that. It's because the VA records weighs you with all your clothes and everything on, and I knew that's what you were reading was what
clothes
the VA
don't
reported.
give you 3 inches. You with me?
Heels do.
Did you have heels on?
No, not that tall.
All right. You even called yourself pudgy at the time, that you were pudgy. Do you remember that word?
What
Do you
time?
dispute using the pudgy?
What time frame?
The time when I deposed you, you said you were pudgy.
Okay. That's kind of a fun term, yeah.
Do you dispute it?
I don't.
What does that word mean?
I never thought about it. Just sort of got a little more roundish, I guess. Haven't defined that before.
Did I hear you say you didn't like to be ignored? Don't ignore me? Are those the words you used?
Just now?
Just 2 minutes ago.
I probably did say that.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite videos because he does 2 submission faces, and I'm going to show you where to find them. And he does what I call a rescue response. Look, let me go way back. You guys who know I have horses. Baby horses have a natural inborn response that protects them from adults. And it's not aggression. It's a movement where they just move their mouth. And adult horses recognize they're weak. Let me tell you what his is.
Why do horses do that? What are you talking about?
It's so that adult horses recognize them and don't injure them. It is a protection thing. It's a newborn thing. And they do it up until they're a year or 2 old. This guy has this too. When he gets to this thing that's exaggerated, that helplessness thing, that's a rescue move. That's a look, I got nothing. I got nothing. Don't attack me any further. We'll see him use it again is the reason I say it's that. And you'll see it in people. If you've ever really, really gotten into it with somebody and they know they have no leg to stand on, they're going to do that. And he does that after he's done a submission face. And when I'm talking about submission, Chase, you talked about him putting his head down, but there's some clear body language to him. Let's start off with saying his blink rate here is probably his baseline. And when we talk about blink rate increases, we're talking about stress increase. And as your stress increases, your blink rate increases. There's lots of reasons people will tell you why, whether it's dry mucous membranes or whatever, doesn't matter. Just know that baseline and then deviation. He starts off slow here. When he says, I am realizing it now, you can see him going to the submission face. And what he does is he slightly turtles, meaning his head shrinks into his body. He cranes his neck. He's very tight-lipped. He makes stern eye contact. And watch these muscles, and I don't remember what they're called, in the lower sides of the eyes, hollow, and his lower eyes widen. We see that in anger. We see that in negative emotions. He does that once when he first does it there, and then again when he is asked something and he says, I don't dispute. You see exactly that same move come up again. Both of those are submission moves. He does a couple of things that I think are really odd. He is, when he's asked about height and he tries the, Scotty does your fading facts. When he tries the heels, do it. Were you in heels? Well, no. He's not had any preparation. So what we got here is 2 submissive faces and 1 rescue response. This guy's not going to fare well. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of fading facts on this one. But here it is again, the refuting, and then the regret, and then the acceptance. That's what we're seeing. And the thing about the heels, when he's talking about how tall he is, well, you are if you're wearing heels, he's guarding his argument. This guy likes to fuss, so he's good at that. That thing was almost preloaded because it came out so quick. Well, it does when you're wearing heels. When is he going to be wearing heels? Maybe he does, but so I think me and this guy, I think we could go a couple of rounds pretty quick because I like to fuss, as you guys know. So that's what we're seeing in this guy, is we're seeing our propensity to guard what you say automatically. When you say it, you're already on guard to protect what your argument is and your anger. So why are you so mad? Well, this, that, and the other thing. So I think I'd keep an eye on that guy. And then when he's talking about being pudgy, he knows that means that you've gained weight or you're a little weighty, but he doesn't want to say that, because he wants to make it look like he's a little bitty fella that ran into her. And how could it hurt her? Because he's not very big at all. So, and she said, somebody big hit me. So he messed up there. Again, his attorneys didn't say, man, here's what you say. Don't say anything outside of this little rail of stuff right here. That's it, man. Don't come out of this like bowling. Go right down the little path there, man, and don't get off it. But he's off the path the whole time. And he doesn't like being corrected. He even says that he doesn't like being ignored. When he says that, don't ignore me. I don't like being ignored. This guy, he and I wouldn't get along at all. I mean, we'd get along. Maybe I'd want him around so I could fuss with him all the time. But this guy, I think he'd get on everybody's nerves fairly quickly. Most everyone's nerves. But that's me. That's just an opinion. Chase, what do you got?
I want to talk some more about white matter shearing, because I'm obsessed with it. So white matter shearing, it doesn't cause any reduction in height for people, period. Period.
Depends on where it's sheared.
Yeah. And 9 out of 10, there's no brain stuff that really causes a reduction in height. We'll talk about one in a few videos, but these are typically issues like tumors or hormonal disorders like Cushing's and stuff. And when he's talking about being pudgy, these snarky comments that he's kind of making back, these little pokey things, tell us something about his behavior that I think isn't totally apparent at first. We see them spike at these moments that his lack of power is brought into light. And this would indicate to me that there's a need for control in other areas of his life, and that this trial might be taking place because he felt powerless during the accident. And he was further made to feel small when Gwyneth left him with a representative on the slope. You're going to see a lot of this if you watch the entire conversation in this courtroom, too. And a lot of people are calling it Napoleon complex online, which I'm not sure of, but that's kind of a colloquial term used to describe a person which is shorter in stature, compensates for their perceived lack of height by displaying aggressive or domineering behavior. And toward the end, you can see his postural bump in this video. You can see him bump this up, which is typically a dominance indicator. We do this for dominance with other people. And his adjustment of the mic there, being dominant, I need to be back in control, which is this adapting, as Greg and Scott would call it. And him taking full ownership of, I don't like to be ignored, might be another indicator of the behavior that we're talking about here, which we'll continue to see more of and explain a little bit more about. That's all I got. Mark?
Yeah. Glad you mentioned that mic, because I have a prop with me today, Chase. And I'm going to use this prop to give everybody a little bit of advice if they go to court. So the first bit of advice, if you go to court, is don't be there in the first place. If you can ever avoid being in court, avoid it. But if you can solve your problem outside of that government institution, my advice would be solve it outside of that, because the only people who are going to have a really good time there are the judge, most likely. It's a nice job to have, as far as I can see, and the lawyers who are going to do quite well out of it. So, number one, try not to go there if you can. Number two, when you're in front of that microphone, it's its job to pick up your sound, not your job to move it around so it can. So just don't touch it. You see how I moved that mic to me, and now I just don't touch it again. And if you weren't getting the sound, I would get somebody else to move it for me. I'd go, well, where should it be? Or I'd say, well, can we turn it up a little bit? I'm not going to monkey around with it. So that he does monkey around with it obviously loses his power. And just as you say, Chase, he's not going to like that look, that loss of power. And also, look, it's just something to fiddle with. It's easy to pick up tells of the adapters there. So that's that. Now, other thing there, we've got the lawyer there with his handkerchief sniffling around with his nose. Doesn't seem to kind of notice that he ends up, with his dripping nose and messing around with that. And so he seems to be kind of a little more kind of socially kind of not there. And that can be a type that ends up in court, very good with the law, not necessarily so good at working out how to interrelate with people. And therefore, the problem with court is you end up trying to handle stuff that you've never had to handle before. Nobody prepares you for any of that. You're in a situation you've never been in, and the people around you are not very socially adept either. So they're unlikely to help you. In fact, the other people around you are quite likely not on your side. And so not only do they want you to look bad, but even if they didn't, they're not often so socially adept that they have a lot of empathy for you. They pretty much don't know sometimes what's going on with their own bodies, let alone yours. So, if you can, stay out of court. If you can't stay out of court, don't monkey around with the mic. Best advice I can give you today.
The eyewitness is you.
Do you realize you are the reason your life has been exposed to the world? You, not Miss Paltrow.
I'm realizing that now, yes. Painful.
Do you remember, you've said you've shrunk and lost weight since the incident, right?
Well, I ballooned.
Now, when we stand you up, you've lost like 15 pounds and shrunk 3 inches, right? Yes or no?
I had no idea. I guess yes. I was
just a few days ago. You said I was 175 to 80 and 5'8". Remember?
I said that not here. Oh, you know what?
In this very trial.
Overruled.
I know why I said that. It's because the VA records weighs you with all your clothes and everything on, and I knew that's what you were reading was what
clothes
the VA
don't
reported.
give you 3 inches. You with me?
Heels do.
Did you have heels on?
No, not at all.
All right. You even called yourself pudgy at the time, that you were pudgy. Do you remember that word?
What
Do you
time?
dispute using the pudgy?
What time frame?
The time when I deposed you, you said you were pudgy.
Okay. That's kind of a fun term, yeah.
Do you dispute it?
I don't.
What does that word mean?
I never thought about it. Just sort of got a little more roundish, I guess. Haven't defined that before.
Did I hear you say you didn't like to be ignored? Don't ignore me? Are those the words you used?
Just now?
Just 2 minutes ago.
I probably did say that.
No, still not good.
Guys.
Scott.
Oh, sorry. Scott's frozen, guys.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's the best you've done so far, but
You're bobbling.
That was the best.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So do you recall that in the seconds before the collision, you were worried about the person to your left? Do you recall that?
I gave her plenty of space because she seemed like I moved way to the right before the off-piste, yes.
But you were with inches of her.
No, I was not within inches of her, no.
All right. What did you say here? Well, first of all, did I correctly read your testimony?
Yes.
All right. You were inches per second past her.
Moving very slowly, yes.
I just remember it took forever to get past her, and there were skis. Now your right eye has problems, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Not a little bit.
Yes, a little bit.
Blind.
No,
You told 3 of your providers at the VA, I'm blind in my right eye.
I use the word loosely.
You used it, and you're an optometrist, right?
I did.
All right. So let's not say little bit, because that's pretty different from blind.
It is.
All right. So you're trying to not hit this person on the left, and you're blind in your right eye. Do you agree that you turned to clear the person on your left?
No, I knew I had plenty of room before I started by her. I wouldn't go by her without knowing I had plenty of room.
You took great care, didn't you,
I did.
to make sure you didn't hit the beginner skier on the left?
Yeah, but you just don't go over.
Is that true?
Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
Are you guys with me? I can't get over how much this attorney sounds like John Malkovich.
That's who it is.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'm down with that. I knew it was somebody because he looks like a doctor. He looks like your doctor. That's the kind of doctor, the look you want on a doctor is that guy.
Yeah.
Because he looks like he knows what he's talking about. That's John Malkovich. Okay. I'm down with that.
Yeah. So if someone's telling the VA, which is the Veterans Affairs Hospital for ex-military people to typically go there, that they have issues that they don't have, there's a behavioral pattern in this person. You're seeing a behavioral pattern of exploitation of institutions. And this also lends itself commonly to people who see themselves as victims and people who have an external locus of control. And maybe that has something to do with the trial that's going on as well. We're seeing a continuation, maybe, of that behavior. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is a guy who has been the smartest guy in the room his whole life, and he's getting away with it here. I would say the organism does what made the organism successful, and I think we're seeing that here. I'm always the smart guy, and so I'm getting away with BS. And I think you're seeing some of that when he goes to the VA as well, Chase. The fact he loosely uses the term blind, and he's an optometrist, come on, that's criminal. That's not loosely using a term. When you're going to the VA, probably you're going to get some kind of benefit from that. I would venture to say, I don't think if you are a guy who's gone and gotten some kind of benefit, you probably would admit you used the word loosely. Look at the contempt and sarcasm in that attorney with his head bobbling as he calls him out and says, you're an optometrist. I love it because you can see the sarcasm. You can see he's just playing with him. And when he does, now the guy tucks his chin to protect his throat and his brow goes up as he starts to respond. That's request for approval. He's asking that guy to believe him. Now, what we're seeing here, this is a great opportunity to see fight or flight kick in. And when we talk about red face, white face, what fight or flight does to a person is it turns off blood flow to the skin. When your brain is trying to regain control because your thinking brain wants you to not look stupid sitting in front of people, then it's going to fluctuate back and forth. And there's a struggle back and forth between the two, the autonomic nervous system and the thinking system. So what you're trying to do there is as you pay attention and that person turns on and off, you'll see red flushes and white face, red flushes and white face. It's a really good opportunity to see it here because we see him go to red face. And we can see he's coming out of it. He breathes, his breathing picks up very quickly. Even does an open mouth catch up breath, which we don't say very often. And Chase, 2 weeks in a row, we get eek face. He does exposes his teeth like the emoji with his brow up, which is a social cue to say, I can't believe I did that. This guy's caught flat footed. This guy is just doing something he's done over and over and over. And he happens to be in a room with somebody who is genuinely smarter than he is. And if he's not genuinely smarter, he knows the rules of the game and you don't. To Mark's point about playing with the mic, these guys set the rules. Mark, what do you got?
Just to reiterate the Wallace and Gromit look, which is, 2 for 2. I think we had him in the last episode as well, given that when he probably realized he was playing for his lawyers, his terrible lawyers, and they're, pretty okay lawyers. So he knows it's going badly, I would say. So he's conscientious enough to know that what he has in mind for himself, and that it's not going in the direction that he would like. There's also an eye block before that Wallace and Gromit eek as well, so it's compounded with that. Comes around, let's not say little, because that's quite different from blind, and he says it is. Eye block, eek face. He knows it's going badly for him. That's all I got on this one. Scott?
All right, well, I'll make mine quick. You guys covered everything. Let's talk about that eat face. That's the face you see and that you make on Instagram when you're looking at Instagram and one of those motorcycles flips over or somebody falls off something or gets hit with something. And it's really quick. This is a micro expression. It's a big one, but it's that real quick. After he gets called out for being blind, not really being blind in his right eye. He's around telling these people he's blind in his right eye, and he's an optometrist. So there's no question about whether he would know whether he was blind or not, but he says he just throws it around, like he just makes fun of it almost. No, he got busted. So that's what's happening here. And that's why I made that face, because he knew he messed up and he got busted for it. And that's why he makes that, what Greg calls the eat face. So you guys covered everything else. So I'll move on from there. Greg, I'll give you that one.
All I did was move my head.
I know, that was so weird.
Yeah,
The eyewitness is you.
All right. So do you recall that in the seconds before the collision, you were worried about the person to your left? Do you recall that?
I gave her plenty of space because she seemed like I moved way to the right before the off-piste, yes.
But you were with inches of her.
No, I was not within inches of her, no.
All right. What did you say here? Well, first of all, did I correctly read your testimony?
Yes.
All right. You were inches per second past her.
Moving very slowly, yes.
I just remember it took forever to get past her, and there were skis. Now, your right eye has problems, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Not a little bit.
Yes, a little bit.
Blind.
No.
You told 3 of your providers at the VA, I'm blind in my right eye.
I use the word loosely.
You used it, and you're an optometrist, right?
I did.
All right. So let's not say little bit, because that's pretty different from blind.
It is.
All right. So you're trying to not hit this person on the left, and you're blind in your right eye. Do you agree that you turned to clear the person on your left?
No, I knew I had plenty of room before I started by her. I wouldn't go by her without knowing I had plenty of room.
You took great care, didn't you?
I did.
To make sure you didn't hit the beginner skier on the left.
Yeah, but you just don't go over.
Is that true?
Yes.
That's all. Thank you. Did you ever say to me, I wrote I'm famous because it's cool that I had a collision with a celebrity? Was that your thinking at the time? And you said yes. Do you deny it?
Not if you have it on record, no. I don't deny it. I don't remember it. But
well, let's go to page 15. Can you bring that up? Move to publish the deposition.
Your Honor, he said he doesn't deny it, so why are we publishing?
Because he earlier denied it.
I'll overrule the objection and permit that portion of the deposition to be published.
May I ask when this happened?
Sure. Like 1 hour ago, 2 hours ago, you told this jury, I've never thought it was cool that I had a collision with a celebrity. Do you recall that?
Yes, I guess I did say that, absolutely.
And that's not a true statement, is it? You have said this in your deposition, true?
Honestly, I don't ever remember saying it.
Bring it up whenever you can.
I don't doubt you. I misspeak a lot.
Mark, what do you got?
Okay, let me see if I can reproduce this, because I kind of deconstructed it. He says, I misspeak a lot, and then we get a lip retraction, okay? And then he sticks his chin out in a kind of a chin boss, kind of. And then the head tilts, and then there's a bit of contempt as well. Bit like that. It's very fast, very flashing. Go if you can see that. Here's what it says to me, that there is some unspoken kind of sorrow, some unspoken sorrow about his low status in that position. I misspeak a lot, and then he shows us some unspoken sorrow at his low status. You might call that self-loathing, I would suggest. Now, so here comes my question. If my analysis is good enough to, start thinking on from that, is the self-loathing because I misspeak a lot because of neural decline? He may have some knowledge of a neural decline. Or is it the self-loathing that comes if you realize you have a certain personality type that will fall into these situations on a bunch of occasions? This isn't the first time. Yeah, he is often the smartest person in the room, but every now and again, he gets himself into one of those situations where he's like, there I am again, not looking good. There, I've done it again. I've done it to myself again. Why do I always get in this position, and how am I going to get myself out of this? Neural decline? Could be that. I mean, I've seen it on many people when they realize the memory's going. They don't know what they knew before, and they realize they're declining. Is it that? Or is it he realizes what kind of personality he's displaying again? Or something else. Could be something else. I don't know. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, Mark, I think all that disdain and the withdrawal of his mouth is because he doesn't like the taste of pond water, and he's drinking a whole bunch of it right now. That's what I think it is. I think he starts off with an absolute example of front of mouth talking. That solicitous, I want you to like me, I want you to listen. His tone and his cadence are down, and there's even clicks in his dry mouth because that, even with that mint or whatever he has in there, that lozenge, because he is feeling the effects of fight or flight. There's that apparently sincere thing, but it looks just a little too telegraphed when he reaches up and does the touch for sincerity. He shows a lip withdrawal when he asks the question, and then he's in chaos internally. You can't miss it. He's jumping around. He does respiration with open mouth. His blink rate's up. His lower face is slack. All of those things indicate fight or flight's there. And his eyes are widened. Again, lower eyes are widened. You could learn to do all that, but it would be awfully hard. And then he shows absolute disdain and disappointment with himself at that question, where he starts to say, I misspeak a lot. And then the final thing that lets us know this is genuine is watch his eyes drop down into his right as they freeze in that last place. You'll rarely hear me say this. I actually feel sorry for this guy right here. I do. I feel
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I got a problem. What did you say?
I actually feel sorry for the guy. I think whether it's brain injury, whether it's something wrong with him, or whether it's just poor attorneys that didn't say, hey, we're out. This is over. Tap out. This guy shouldn't be on the stand. And I feel sorry for the guy here. It's that bad. Scott, what do you got?
Jeez, man, you cleaned up all my stuff I was going to say. So I'll go basic. Again, we're seeing refuting, regret, and acceptance. And we're seeing him just get plain old busted. Old school, busted in a lie right there. That's what's happening. And most of the regret is experienced at the end. So it's a little bit out of sync with what he's been doing. But I think he feels bad about that. And I would feel sorry for him, Greg, but I know I've got an opinion of what kind of person he is. And so I don't feel sorry for him. I think he's getting what's coming to him. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with y'all. Greg took my notes again for this one. And we don't compare notes before these. And I think it's amazing that we agree almost 90%, 99% of the time. I think it might be a Werther's original that he's got in there.
Have you ever called something a lozenge?
No.
The cough drop, man.
Really?
Or candy. I never called it a lozenge. Anyway, sorry, dude.
In this clip, there's a ton of forgetting, but I'm seeing some inconsistencies here. The instances he can't remember are about blunders, and every other event is detailed, like the water on the floor, the precise warping, the graphic detail of the incident with the box cutter, even this perfect memory of all the other incidents that he talks about that are outside this clip. He seems to only remember negative information about her. And he only remembers negative information about him if it's on record. He even says that in this clip here. I'll agree with it if it's on the record. Let's talk some more about white matter shearing just really quick. It can damage the hippocampus and other brain regions that are involved in just encoding and the retrieval of what we call episodic memories, like I got an event in my head, like a birthday party or a road trip. But it tends to be a recurring and consistent problem when we see it. Like 1/1,000,000th of 1% might have something that's inconsistent. So it's not, we don't see little spikes of, I remember this piece of the event, but not this piece. And I remember that end. I remember part of the middle. And the pattern of memory impairment is not random, but rather I think follows a predictable pattern based on the function of the hippocampus and memory processing. The facial expression at the end of this clip is what we do to get pity from other people. The downward glance, the head turned down, the lips disappearing, convey a ton of information here. And just the lips are showing us this internal feeling of grief for himself.
The eyewitness is you.
Did you ever say to me, I wrote, I'm famous because it's cool that I had a collision with a celebrity. Was that your thinking at the time? And you said yes. Do you deny it?
Not if you have it on record, no. I don't deny it. I don't remember it. But
well, let's go to page 15. Can you bring that up? Move to publish the deposition.
Your Honor, he said he doesn't deny it, so why are we publishing?
Because he earlier denied it.
I'll overrule the objection and permit that portion of the deposition to be published.
May I ask when this happened?
Sure. Like 1 hour ago, 2 hours ago, you told this jury, I've never thought it was cool that I had a collision with a celebrity. Do you recall that?
Yes, I guess I did say that, absolutely.
And that's not a true statement, is it? You have said this in your deposition, true?
Honestly, I don't ever remember saying it.
Bring it up whenever you can.
I don't doubt you. I misspeak a lot.
Now let's go to your weight. You testified today that you were 163 and 5'5", true?
Yes, I did.
And do you agree that at your deposition you told me you were 175 to 180 and 5'8"? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Qualified, yes.
No, I don't want to qualify.
I can't
Did you tell me that? Like I said, how much do you weigh? And you said 175, 80. How much did you weigh? And then you said 5'8". How high are you? How tall are you? 3 inches different, right?
I just found that out. I didn't realize. I've had people telling me that.
You told this jury that at the time of the accident you were 163 and 5'5". Did you not, like 2 hours ago?
I did, yes. Yes.
But you told me in your deposition years ago that you were 170 to 180 and 5'8". True?
How many years ago did we do this?
3 years ago.
I've lost a lot of weight. I'm down to my usual weight.
You know we're interested not now in your weight today. We're interested in your weight on the day.
Thank you. I knew where that was going.
Do you agree you were 5'8"?
Yes.
Have you shrunk 3 inches?
I couldn't believe it either. I wanted to argue because I think I'm
5'8" yet.
You do have degenerative back disease, and those discs are getting squeezed. Is that why?
I have to say yes. I've always been 5'8.5", and I knew I shrunk a half an inch, but 3. Wow.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so this is the one clip. This video is the one that made me say, I've rarely seen anything that I thought a person might go, I did it on the stand. This might be one where it would have been a wise move just to finish the trial and not get beaten up anymore, because this guy is painted into a corner here. He has one-sided face when he says, yes, I did. That's contempt or disdain for the situation. His chin's over his throat, and he's pushed back in the chair, trying to get away. Even faded facts, to use your words, Scott, when he swallows words and goes, yes, I did. His chin is no longer up in defiance now, and his lower lip is actually quivering if you watch. You see that in children when they are called on the carpet and they're in a bind. Right there is when I would have just said, just leave me alone. I did this. We're done. Yeah. But he doesn't. He takes a preparatory breath. He has an idea he needs to say something. He says, it's qualified. So he's even going to tell you he's using a qualifier when he's telling you something. And then he just gets laid into again. And right there, you just start to go, wow, let's watch for something else. Watch the ball guy in the back. He's showing confusion and concern as he listens to this guy. Like, what's this guy talking about? And then Terry, here's one of those things that you guys talk about a lot, is fleeting emotions across the face. We talked about this with Amber Heard. We see feigned confusion in Terry as that knit brow comes up, and it's only there for a split second. Then he does throwaway facts again with half inch, but 3, wow. And mumbles admission. Just say you did it and sit down. This would be a lot easier. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree. And on top of that, here we're finally seeing that there's some pathological stuff involved in the height issue. He likely told them that he has what's called Paget's disease or Cushing's. And when he says qualified, yes, chin goes down big time, which is an unconscious, not conscious, an unconscious reaction to protect the neck. So let's break down how a doctor talks about his own weight and height. A doctor. Qualified, yes. I just found that out. I didn't realize. I've lost a lot of weight. I wanted to argue. I couldn't believe it either. I have to say yes, is how he says yes. I have to say yes. So this is obviously deception to me, anyway. But there aren't many good shots of him in the clip. But when somebody testifies they were 5'5" at the time of the accident, then tells you they shrunk from 5'8" after the accident, this means he would have to grow 3 inches and then shrink. That's the logic hidden inside of the statement in this clip right here. Scott, what do you got?
All right. And I don't think he's a doctor. I think he's an optometrist, not an ophthalmologist. So ophthalmologist is, yeah, I think that's the glasses guy. And an ophthalmologist, I think, is the am I right on this?
I think they're still doctors. Yeah, I think they're still doctors. Yeah.
I think it's still an MD.
Just one works on the eye, the other works on correcting vision, I think is right. Hold on.
Oh. Okay.
While you're talking, I'll let you know.
Okay. I think he tried his best to chaff and redirect on this, but he couldn't pull it off. I don't think he's smart enough to pull it off. He thinks he is, but he's not. But he's used to getting his way. I know this guy. I know this kind of guy. Like I always say, becoming an interrogator has enabled me to become the I always knew I could be. And so when I spot one, I know it. And I'm under the impression, it's just my opinion, that that's what this is we're dealing with. So I don't feel sorry for him at all. I think he's getting what he deserves here. And what he says, thank you. He's in the fight, but he's not fighting. He's just being beat up. I can't believe his attorneys didn't jump in and just yell, I object. Anything to stop that fight. You know, even the attack, just for a second to break things up and let him hopefully get his head together and start again. I think this wasn't a good thing for him at all. And I think it's showing up because nobody's trained him. We're still seeing all the things we talk about all the time. We're seeing everything body language wise that says this is going wrong for him and he's not being forthright with everything he's saying. That's what it looks like to me. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, I think this is his 4th near-death experience, which is going on
right
now.
This might be real.
Right now. I am witnessing that. Look, what do we got here? We got downward glances. We've got the head bladed to one side as he looks furtively again and again towards the threat. So he is showing the body language of caution here before he says a qualified yes. So we even see it in his body language. He's cautious about his behavior. Why? Because he knows he's trapped. I mean, he does become more symmetrical and resolute when he says a qualified yes and then sinks back immediately. He's absolutely done in this situation. Look, here's the way I see it, is in polite society, I can go out and tell the story of being hit by Gwyneth Paltrow on the ski thing. And I will go, look, she hit me from behind and I was flying and she was on top of me and I hit my head and I was out for 10 minutes. And then there was this ski instructor who was having a go at me because you should never let, in polite society, the truth get in the way of a really good story, because you're having fun, you're entertaining people, you're getting the conversation going. And in polite society, nobody will go, but Mark, you're not that tall. I mean, how tall are you? Nobody will do that. And if they start doing that, they're being antisocial. They don't know the rules. The rules of a story is you can use hyperbole, you can tell lies in a story because you're just entertaining. Now, what you can't do is then take those lies into a court, because you've now got somebody antisocial who's the lawyer who will not let it go, who will go at you and at you and at you about your height. And he's never experienced that before. He's told his story a whole bunch of times and he's never had anybody go, you went flying? What are you talking about? That's just not possible. It's just not possible, okay? It's never happened to him before. And he's probably used to not telling fun stories. He's probably used to telling stories full of status and hyperbole where people go, oh, yes, okay, yeah, you're very important. And he likes that. He likes that very importantness. And he doesn't have people call him out in general. And if he does have people call him out, he doesn't hang around those people so much. He'll make a beeline away from them. Anyway, all of this to make my point. If you can not go to court, just don't sort it out somewhere else. Like if you're telling the story about being hit by Gwyneth Paltrow, somebody sidles up next to you and goes, you know what, you should sue her. Yeah. Go, no, I'm all right, mate. I'm just having a bit of a laugh. I'm just telling a story, just having some fun with my mates here, just having some fun. Yeah. Somebody sidled up to him and went, you should sue. And he went, yeah, let's do that. And like Scott said, cheapest one out the phone book, probably, or friend of a friend, and now look where you are. Bad advice all round. I think that's all of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
The eyewitness is you.
Now let's go to your weight. You testified today that you were 163 and 5'5". True?
Yes, I did.
And do you agree that at your deposition you told me you were 175 to 180 and 5'8"? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Qualified, yes.
No, I don't want to qualify.
I can't
Did you
answer
tell
it.
me that? Like I said, how much do you weigh? And you said 175/80. How much did you weigh? And then you said 5'8". How high are you? How tall are you? 3 inches different, right?
I just found that out. I didn't realize. I've had
Sir,
people telling me that.
You
honestly.
told this jury that at the time of the accident you were 163 and 5'5". Did you not, like 2 hours ago?
I did, yes. Yes.
But you told me in your deposition years ago that you were 170 to 180 and 5'8". True?
How many years ago did we do this?
3 years ago.
I've lost a lot of weight. I'm down to my usual weight.
You know we're interested not now in your weight today. We're interested in your weight on the day.
Thank you. I knew where that was
Do you
going.
agree you were 5'8"?
Yes.
Have you shrunk 3 inches?
I couldn't believe it either. I wanted to argue because I think I'm 5'8" yet.
You do have degenerative back disease, and those discs are getting squeezed. Is that why?
I have to say yes. I've always been 5'8.5", and I knew I shrunk a half an inch, but 3, wow.
We talked about you being unconscious, and do you agree that someone who's unconscious doesn't have a stopwatch to figure out how long they were actually unconscious?
I agree. That's true.
Everything you've learned was from Craig after the collision.
No.
Yeah, that's over vague, and I'll withdraw it because I agree that's
not everything. It's not everything.
Right. As far as level of length of unconsciousness, do you agree that you weren't stopwatching yourself?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and yet you did tell people it varied over time. First a few seconds, then 5 minutes, then 10 minutes. You did that, right? Do you disagree?
Yes, it did vary.
And why did you do that? Why would you say, I don't know, then it's a few seconds, then it's 5 minutes, and then you told your psychiatrist at the VA it was up to 10 minutes long? Why did you change?
I had no idea, and I was searching. I really had no idea, and I was trying to answer. I sometimes make that mistake of guessing, but I really didn't know.
And it was to try to get the attention of the doctor. Do you remember telling me that?
I don't. I don't know how to.
Let's find it.
What's the date?
Let's go to page 95.
Which deposition, 1, 2, or 3?
1. They're all cumulative, so the page will tell you that. Page 95, starting at line 7. When you first tell your healthcare providers a few seconds, and then later it turned into 5 minutes, and then later it turned into 10 minutes, do you know that you gave varying answers to people? And then whenever you can pull it up, page 95.
Yes.
The witness says, and then can we go to the middle paragraph? Yes, I do. And that was referencing the fact I personally did not know. I was not a witness to how long I was unconscious. And so somebody told me it was 2 seconds, and somebody said it was 10 seconds, 10 minutes. And so I didn't know. It was hard for me to say. And then, next paragraph, it depends on my visit. If I want to make a deal out of it, and that was the reason for my visit, then I might say for 10 minutes. I might pick the worst. That's kind of how we are. We go to the doctor's attention. We go to get the doctor's attention about a specific thing. And it wasn't at that point how long I was unconscious was not a point of relevance for me. That's your testimony, correct?
I'm confused by those statements, so...
Yes or no?
Yes, it is.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
The amusement on the attorney's face here is priceless. It's priceless. But we're seeing some more telling history here. And since you guys are just going to nail the crap out of the body language thing, I didn't even look at it in this clip today. He told a psychiatrist at the VA it was an exaggerated amount of time. And in my schooling, we had this as a textbook, which probably cost me $400 or something. I don't know. This is the assessment of clinical malingering and deception. It's the textbook for doctors on how to tell when somebody's faking an illness. And there's 3 big factors for faking an MTBI, a mild traumatic brain injury, or a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. Number 1 is an inverse relationship between the severity of the injury and the degree of disability. Maybe we're seeing that. I'm not a doctor. Number 2, memory impairments around key issues that may prove the injury less severe. Again, I'm not a doctor. Number 3, memory clear on issues that make the issue more severe. Magically. It does not say magically. But again, I'm not a doctor. And when he says how long I was unconscious was not a point of relevance for me. My medical education goes as far as tactical combat medical training. It's mainly about gunshot wounds and stuff. But I'm pretty sure that every medical doctor in the world would know that the length of time somebody's unconsciousness is a big deal. And I think this open admission of exaggerating medical claims to the VA to get maybe more attention is pretty bad. And I think it speaks to the behavior that we initially spotted that might have pointed in this direction and the direction that the trial is potentially going at this point at freight train speed. That's all I got. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Again, where are his attorneys? Her attorney stops and corrects himself.
Yo, I'm going to let this keep going, but I got to let my dog out of the office. She's going to freak out.
There you go, man.
Keep going.
Take off. Okay. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. So he corrects himself. They don't even get a chance to jump in, and they should have jumped in, but didn't. So this is out of control. I'm starting to feel what you feel, Greg. It's just like, man, put a stop to this. This is bad. Again, we're seeing that refuting, the regret, and the acceptance, and I'm just seeing a lot of confusion here from a body language standpoint. A lot of being confused. I think he's trying to, after he's exaggerated everything, he's going through trying to unravel everything and then put it back together so he saves a little face, and which is going to be impossible at this point. But I think there's just a lot of confusion, and he's trying to play cleanup. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, this attorney, I agree with you guys. The attorney shows disappointment in his own question. Nobody objects. He objects to himself, which I love. Then you see disdain in this guy, because you see the single side of the face draw back. We say disdain or contempt. When it's about self, it's usually going to be disdain for the situation, that kind of thing. When he has to admit that he has no idea. He says, I have no idea. Now, he does that thing again, that what am I supposed to do? That I said it's kind of like a horse telegraphing, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me. There's no other reason to do that. That is an absolute admission of I have no idea. I have no idea. And it's a reason to stop knocking this stuffing out of me. But that doesn't stop him, and he continues to roll along. We see disgust, a little bit of a nose wrinkle. We see disdain, that side of the mouth drawn back. We see a retreat, a stiffened neck, and a change in posture. This guy finally gets to a point where he's run out of anything positive to say, and he starts self-deprecation. He turtles. He throws away words. There's some fading facts. He's run out of places to go, and I think all he does now, and then finally he even mouth grooms. I think what he's done is just gotten to a point where all he can say is, look, I make mistakes. I do this. I do that. I'm not sure that's related to brain injury, Chase. I think it may be related to bad personal choices. And he probably could have some concussion mixed in there. Look, I had a concussion that caused me to lose 8 hours of a day one time. It didn't affect my judgment about saying I flew off the horse and did this and this and this. I'll tell you what I remember. I remember the horse doing something and me thinking, okay, I got this, and then waking up in a hospital. That's what I remember. I don't remember any other parts. I don't try to fill them in, because that's not my personality. If it's your personality to always have an answer for everything, even when that's not the case, you're going to fill in the blanks. And that's what I think we're seeing some of. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so one last piece of body language here. The head moves in a circular motion, very strange circular motion, with raised shoulders on, yes, it did vary. So he's not even a credible witness to himself, because there's no nodding or shaking of the head. It's a strange circular motion with turtling at the same time. We go to get attention. So is he attention seeking? Is that what it's about? Because again, as we've been discussing, that fits into a specific personality type. And I'm glad you brought up, Scott, this idea of confusion, because let's just delineate the kind of confusion he's having here, or ambiguate it. I think he's having confusion, like you say, about things aren't working out for him. He knows the locus points at which he knows where he wants to be going, and he knows he's not getting there, and he knows he's being thwarted and confounded along the way, and he's getting the sense that he's not good enough to get himself out of this. And I think the confusion is coming from this. What I'm not not seeing in his face is the confusion that I've seen many, many times with people who have a cognitive decline, a neural decline, where the confusion has no locus. The person has moments where they have zero idea as to what's going on, nothing to attach to. And it's a very, very specific look in my mind in the face around that kind of confusion. And though you're right, Scott, I do see confusion, I don't see that specific type of confusion. I think that's important to where you're going there, Chase, on, is there some real, does this person have a real medical problem at the level that he suggests he has a medical problem? I'm not sure. Not sure he does. Let's move on, see what we see.
Mark, in the book here that I just held up, they delineate between non-locus confusion and locus confusion. Yeah. And specifically whether or not the person pays attention to that confusion. So I don't remember the word for it, but there's a spike of that person's awareness and attention. They're acutely aware of the confusion.
Yeah.
That was and here he's socially aware in a way that a lot of times confused people are not. He's socially aware that his ass is in a sling and that he has to back up and backpedal and move. A lot of times when people are confused, that part is missing. There's a lot of social awareness here.
The eyewitness is you.
We talked about you being unconscious, and do you agree that someone who's unconscious doesn't have a stopwatch to figure out how long they were actually unconscious?
I agree, that's true.
Everything you've learned was from Craig after the collision.
No.
Yeah, that's over vague, and I'll withdraw it because I agree that's
not everything. It's not everything.
Right. As far as level of length of unconsciousness, do you agree that you weren't stopwatching yourself?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and yet you did tell people it varied over time. First a few seconds, then 5 minutes, then 10 minutes. You did that, right? Do you disagree?
Yes, it did vary.
And why did you do that? Why would you say, I don't know, then it's a few seconds, then it's 5 minutes, and then you told your psychiatrist at the VA it was up to 10 minutes long? Why did you change?
I had no idea, and I was searching. I really had no idea, and I was trying to answer. I sometimes make that mistake at guessing, but I really didn't know.
And it was to try to get the attention of the doctor. Do you remember telling me that?
I don't. I don't know how to.
Let's find it.
What's the date?
Let's go to page 95.
Which deposition, 1, 2, or 3?
1. They're all cumulative, so the page will tell you that. Page 95, starting at line 7. When you first tell your healthcare providers a few seconds, and then later it turned into 5 minutes, and then later it turned into 10 minutes, do you know that you gave varying answers to people? And then whenever you can pull it up, page 95.
Yes.
The witness says, and then can we go to the middle paragraph? Yes, I do. And that was referencing the fact I personally did not know. I was not a witness to how long I was unconscious. And so somebody told me it was 2 seconds, and somebody said it was 10 seconds, 10 minutes. And so I didn't know. It was hard for me to say. And then, next paragraph, it depends on my visit. If I want to make a deal out of it, and that was the reason for my visit, then I might say for 10 minutes. I might pick the worst. That's kind of how we are. We go to the doctor's attention. We go to get the doctor's attention about a specific thing. And it wasn't at that point how long I was unconscious was not a point of relevance for me. That's your testimony, correct?
I'm even confused by those statements, so...
yes or no?
Yes, it is.
Do you dispute that... well, I heard you call Eric Christensen, a Deer Valley instructor for 40 years, a bully. Did you say that?
I did say that, yes.
And that he was yelling at your face.
Yes. I figured out. I didn't actually know that until...
And we'll meet him at 1 o'clock. Deer Valley's known, or at least puts itself out there, doesn't it, as like the most customer friendly they could possibly be. Do you agree?
I agree.
Were your skis on or off at the end of the collision, do you know?
Absolutely, they were on.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you do remember some things after?
Yes.
Okay. And Craig, by the way, you said you weren't here for your daughters, but you haven't been here for several statements, right?
Several, yes.
It was more than just like, I don't want to make my daughters uncomfortable. You haven't been here for many.
I didn't.
Yeah. And Sam Goldstein said part of the reason is you don't take criticism well. Do you agree with that statement?
I always want to be a better person, and I even tell my kids, if I'm doing something wrong, tell me. I want to be better.
All right.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to make this one pretty quick because I want you to compare what he looks like now with what he looked like in the beginning of the videos. This is a dog with his tail between his legs. This guy is in a bind and he knows it. Look at the beginning. You'll see that he didn't have all these things going. The withdrawn side of his mouth shows disdain. His eyes are narrow in an attempt to disengage. We narrow our eyes a lot of times for less intake. When we're in fight or flight, they open, but otherwise we do. He's braced in the chair. His voice is actually very low until he says, I didn't actually know that until. And he tries to be emphatic, and even then his voice is weak. And I agree, his blink rate goes up, and he tries to look for a way to break eye contact. Compared to the start of this thing, this is not the same guy. And the last thing he does is exasperation that as he gets ready to take another big swallow of pond water. And even then, he conditions the acceptance of faults. I always want to be, and then he goes to front of the mouth talking. This shows social awareness and the defeated, he's defeated. That takes a certain amount of awareness and mental acuity to be able to do. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with you. If when I watched the entire deposition or cross-examination, you can drag that little YouTube slider across and just watch his body get smaller in like quick cut or whatever they call it. Right here, there's a huge spike in detail memory and just the quickness of recall. Very quick. In many cases where a concussion or loss of consciousness happens, there are losses of episodic memory. And in many cases, if an event is missing because of a loss of consciousness, the entire memory is wiped. But it is possible that some details like this can remain in memory. It's incredibly rare, according to all the research. And research has shown that when people are exposed to inaccurate information about an event, especially near a loss of consciousness, they may incorporate that information into their memory of the event. So even if it's false, and this can happen when the person is trying to be truthful and accurate in their recollection of the event, the repeated exposure to a story from other people can make it harder for the person to distinguish between what they experienced and what they heard. I'm just doing a little bit of devil's advocate here, that's all. And in the case of an event such as a brain injury, it's possible that a witness or a healthcare professional can provide a person with information about what happened that will later influence testimony. It can influence all kinds of stuff in the future and even maybe a lawsuit down the road. There's even some studies that show our desire to interpret this stuff differently. I want to see it a certain way can create an absolute false memory as well. So when you go visit that memory again, you're not visiting an edited memory, you're visiting memory. If you want to look up some cool research on this, you can Google that with the researcher's name. Her name is Elizabeth Loftus. Scott, what do you got?
All right. And mine are getting shorter and shorter here because I think we're seeing a lot of the same things over and over. But the first part, he's being honest and he's sure of himself. And the last part, this is when it switches up a bit because he's not so sure. And again, he's playing cleanup. It's acceptance. He's like, what is he going to do at this point? And you're right, Chase. He keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller as we go along. And he's just defending his bad behavior. That's like I said, mine's going to be short from here on out. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so look, if you're a subscriber, and if you're not, you probably should, you'll know that not only do we like to look at what's happening non-verbally, but also the pictures that people are creating in your mind as these events go on, maybe the pictures that are happening in their own mind, because we make up a lot of our behaviors based on the way we think we're seeing the world or the way it's being projected to us. So look, here's the picture I'm getting from this whole scenario. I'm not saying that this picture is true, but what I'm suggesting is it's probably a similar picture that the jury are picking up as well. And that this picture may well be on purpose, and it may well give us an insight into the mind of this person as well. So he's at a friendly ski resort that the world's most beautiful people use. So imagine that. He's at a ski resort that the world's most beautiful people use. Gwyneth Paltrow being, the story is she's very, very beautiful. That may be true or may be false, but there she is there. But for him, it's full of monsters. It's full of monsters and it's full of bullies for this half-blind, attention-seeking, shrinking man who does not take criticism well and does not show up for his own daughters. Well, what an interesting story we now have there that's being projected, I think, to the jury. And so if you heard that story, of course, you're going to go in a certain direction. Now, I'm not saying that story is true or false. It probably has some truth to it and some exaggeration to it. But I would suggest that's partly why that story is partly why the jury make the decisions that they're making, not wholly responsible, but partly responsible for that. And I think it's an interesting story that the defense has set up there, who really, because it really is a prosecution at the same time, I guess, because he's trying to get his own fees back again. Anyway, interesting story. And why would you like somebody who gets to go to the most beautiful places on the planet with the beautiful people and they think it's full of monsters and bullies? Strange, shrinking man. There, that's all I got on that one.
That's how you do it.
The eyewitness is you.
Do you dispute that? Well, I heard you call Eric Christensen, a Deer Valley instructor for 40 years, a bully. Did you say that?
I did say that, yes.
And that he was yelling at your face.
Yes. I figured out. I didn't actually know that until.
And we'll meet him at 1 o'clock. Deer Valley's known, or at least puts itself out there, doesn't it, as like the most customer friendly they could possibly be. Do you agree?
I agree.
Were your skis on or off at the end of the collision? Do you know?
Absolutely, they were on.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you do remember some things after?
Yes.
Okay. And Craig, by the way, you said you weren't here for your daughters, but you haven't been here for several statements, right?
Several, yes.
It was more than just like, I don't want to make my daughters uncomfortable. You haven't been here for many.
I didn't.
Yeah. And Sam Goldstein said part of the reason is you don't take criticism well. Do you agree with that statement?
I always want to be a better person, and I even tell my kids, if I'm doing something wrong, tell me. I want to be better.
All right. Did you ever complain to Deer Valley about Eric Christensen, like I was treated like a bully?
Had a lot of time to think about it.
Yes or no?
I don't know if I did. I think when I contacted Deer Valley, I was just after I wanted to find out who hit me, and I wanted to copy the records, and I didn't bring it up.
Yeah, you never once wrote to Deer Valley like, hey, your ski instructor is a total SOB to me. He treated me poorly.
That's correct. I didn't bring it up because I did not want to cause some anger from them. I wanted to copy it, find out who hit me.
But 7 years later, you're here saying he was terrible to me, just terrible. Craig Ramon said words to the effect that Christensen said to Ramon, your buddy took out Gwyneth Paltrow. Did you hear those words?
I did.
You personally heard them with your... So now I want to be clear because I'm not trying to confuse you. Did you hear him when you were on the ski slope? Okay. And Ramon did not do anything to try to set the record straight at that point. Do you know anything about that?
About who hit me?
Correct.
When we got down into
at that
medical
point
care.
was my question. On the mountain.
Yeah, on the mountain, but in the shed. I was...
Okay.
All right, I'll go first on this one. What we're seeing here mostly and mainly is fading facts, and that's when someone is giving you an answer and they're not confident with it, or they may not be being honest about it, and it gets quieter and quieter and quieter as it goes along. And they'll sometimes back up as well, which you're seeing here for the most part. That's really all I've got to say about it. Greg, what do you got?
I'll add a little bit, fading phrases.
Nicely done.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, for sure. I'll add one thing to that fading fact, which is a single shoulder shrug with it as well. Chase, what you got?
There's definitely something I call fading facts in here. That's Scott's word, but that's all I got.
Okay. I give Chase. Okay. I'll give you that one, Chase. Mark, you got to, Greg's doing good, but Mark, you got to come up, man. You got to,
all right.
You got to lean into this next one. Right. Pardon the pun.
The eyewitness is you.
Did you ever complain to Deer Valley about Eric Christensen? Like I was treated like a bully?
I had a lot of time to think about it.
Yes or no?
I don't know if I did. I think when I contacted Deer Valley, I was just after I wanted to find out who hit me, and I wanted to copy the records, and I didn't bring it up.
Yeah, you never once wrote to Deer Valley like, hey, your ski instructor is a total SOB to me. He treated me poorly.
That's correct. I didn't bring it up because I did not want to cause some anger from them. I wanted to copy it, find out who hit me.
But 7 years later, you're here saying he was terrible to me, just terrible. Craig Ramon said words to the effect that Christensen said to Ramon, your buddy took out Gwyneth Paltrow. Did you hear those words?
I did.
You personally heard them with your... So now I want to be clear because I'm not trying to confuse you. Did you hear him when you were on the ski slope? Okay. And Ramon did not do anything to try to set the record straight at that point. Do you know anything about that?
About who hit me?
Correct.
When we got down into
at that
medical
point
care.
Was my question. On the mountain.
Yeah, on the mountain, but in the shed. I was...
Okay. Did you tell Shay that there was a GoPro recording?
Absolutely not.
Do you recall at the exact time of this event, going down the hill, you were sort of crossing over to the right? Does that sound accurate?
No.
You were always on the right?
Yes.
Okay, Christensen is going to testify this afternoon, so we'll talk about that. And do you agree in the 5 seconds or so before the collision, there was a female skier, kind of beginner-ish, on your left?
Yes.
And do you agree that you actually tilted your head to the left to sort of confirm that you weren't going to hit her, that she would be okay?
After the accident?
5 seconds before the accident?
No.
Did you so testify ever?
I saw her. I don't know. What I remember is I always saw her. She was a little uncomfortable, and I gave her a little more room, just kind of what you do.
And
passing on your right.
And did you turn because of your right eye is blind?
No.
Did you turn toward her?
No reason to.
Look, you did not.
No.
Okay, we'll pull that up in probably at our next visit.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
I'm just going to cover one thing on here because we're going to do a callback to early when I told you that he was unraveling a story in front of you and deconflicting it. He's doing it here on the stand as he's trying to tell a story. When he's asked what he testified, watch that same stuff. They're clusters. Before he wasn't lying, he was trying to unravel. But here he's attempting to answer. And that cadence, pitch, tone, and tone change, everything goes, his blink rate increases. He knows he's entangling. Look, all the same things, the turtling, the rigidness in the face, all that stuff. If you go back and look at when he was doing it, that's a baseline deviation. Baselines matter. And when people are deceptive, they often use a baseline as well. Scott, what do you got?
I agree with you. And we're getting down to the point where we're seeing just replays of what's happened so far. But at the beginning of that, I think we're seeing a little bit of confusion. And then when he leans into that part about not having a GoPro, and I think there's a GoPro, and I think he mouthed off about it, and that's why everybody thought there was one. Not just his people, but I think people in that orbit of that situation. Either, well, I've got a GoPro if it happened or whatever. So I think that's what's going on there. And he doesn't have his story straight. This is another example of really bad or no witness prep whatsoever. Nothing. I think they probably talked about it. So just go up there and talk. That's what it sounds like to me. Chase, what do you got? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I thought the same thing. Like he'd be sitting there somewhere at a cocktail party saying, "Oh yeah, I've got a GoPro of this thing."
Yeah,
kicking back and
can't lose.
When he says absolutely not, let's just walk through this. There's a huge breath into the chest, which is a change in baseline. There's awkward timing, change in baseline. Head downcast, change in baseline. Blink rate shoots up, stress indicator, change in baseline. And body freeze, slight change in baseline. And there's just absolute contempt at the end of this clip for the head turning question. Just contempt. And when somebody uses victimhood for gain, that doesn't mean that they're pity seeking. If you see a person who does this and has low self-esteem, you'll see them get very upset if you point out how personal injuries that they exaggerate for benefit make them weaker. So it's not about self-pity. It's about benefit from victimhood, not pity, which is a different thing from what we might have seen possibly allegedly in Harry and Meghan video. I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but it could be true in another circumstance with another person, if you get my drift. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, look, I got to make a confession. By now, watching these videos, I was having a near-death experience. I was losing the will to live at this point because he's fried, he's done, okay? And so I started looking at the public gallery, which is beautiful, because they're bored out of their minds by now. I had this little story. I go back, have a look at that public gallery and just think to yourself, they're all in their minds going, when's Gwyneth Paltrow back? Is she coming back on the stand? Will the good entertainer be back soon? When is she coming back? Will she be coming back? They're looking on the phone. Oh, I don't know whether she's coming back. Some guy's scratching his head. They are bored out of their minds now because they know it's done. But they're trying to look a little bit attentive because they know they're on national television. And at the same time, they're desperate for Gwyneth to come back into the show. It's desperately boring without Gwyneth. That's all I got on this one.
The eyewitness is you.
Did you tell Shay that there was a GoPro recording?
Absolutely not.
Do you recall at the exact time of this event, going down the hill, you were sort of crossing over to the right? Does that sound accurate?
No.
You were always on the right?
Yes.
Okay, Christensen is going to testify this afternoon, so we'll talk about that. And do you agree in the 5 seconds or so before the collision, there was a female skier, kind of beginner-ish, on your left?
Yes.
And do you agree that you actually tilted your head to the left to sort of confirm that you weren't going to hit her, that she would be okay?
After the accident?
5 seconds before the
Before,
accident.
no.
Did you so testify ever?
I saw her. I don't know. What I remember is I always saw her. She was a little uncomfortable, and I gave her a little more room. Just kind of what you do.
And
passing on your right.
And did you turn because of your right eye is blind?
No.
Did you turn toward her?
No reason to.
Look, you did not.
No.
Okay, we'll pull that up in probably at our next visit. At 6 o'clock, just 6 hours after the collision, did you tell your daughter Shay, "I'm okay"? Yes?
Yes.
Asked and answered.
Thank you.
Overruled.
And then on the hill itself, with the accident having occurred just in the prior minutes, do you agree that someone asked you, "Are you okay"?
That is absolutely, beyond a doubt, wrong. No one spoke to me when I was needing help. No one stopped. No one.
So your testimony is Eric Christensen just sat there and looked at an unconscious man for several minutes. Is that your testimony?
Yes, he never said one word to me that I recall. Maybe when he got me up.
So Ramon, although he did try to change his deposition, did say that at one point you said, "I'm okay." Do you dispute it?
I dispute it.
Now,
to
dispute it, you have to know everything you said, right? Like, I know everything I said, and I didn't say it. Are you saying you have a perfect memory of what you said on that hill just after the collision? Yes or no?
I knew.
That's an argumentative.
That's not argumentative.
Overruled.
Yes or no? Say yes or no, please.
Question again, please.
Yes. Do you agree that you do not have a perfect memory of what you told others after in the 1, 2 minutes, 3 minutes after the collision? Or do you have a perfect memory?
Well, that word is so ultimate, perfect. No.
Right.
Answer would be no, it's not perfect.
Okay. So it's possible you said, for instance, Eric Christensen is going to testify, first witness this afternoon, that you told him, "I'm okay." Do you dispute it?
I dispute it. I never felt safe and like anybody was there to help me.
And then
I would not have said it.
He's about to testify that not only he was there, but a ski patroller duo came over. One of them came over and said, "Do you guys need any help?" or words to that effect. And that you consulted with Ramon and then said no. Do you dispute it?
I absolutely would have said no. I never said safe.
So I don't want to say what I would have said. I want to know if you remember. Do you remember that?
No,
okay.
I don't remember.
In fact, you don't even remember that ski patrollers came by. True?
No, I do not remember that.
Yeah.
Ever.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
This is a perfect example of unusual memory loss. And it's, I think the scientific term for this is super weird. He's telling people he has a hard time remembering things. He has little to no memory of the event, and everything is inaccessible behind some locked door. Then telling you with the conviction of someone with a perfect memory that nobody said one specific phrase or anything to him. And then seconds later, he says, "That I recall." And then seconds after that, he says, "I don't remember a large portion of the incident." When you have memory loss, you typically have memory loss. And when an event is fuzzy, it's fuzzier the closer you get to the moment of the loss of consciousness. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll go back. Like I said, the time I had my head whacked, I could remember it real close and then nothing for a long period of time. I can't remember little pieces. I can't remember, oh, it was this, but I can't put them in order. Not how it worked. Now, everybody's different, I'm sure. And mine was a pretty good crack. So I don't know. What I think is a certain personality type will want to know everything that happened, then incorporate it into the bar story, Mark, to your point, and not know the bar story is a different story than the courtroom story. So being adamant and being the person who's always the smartest person in the room is going to get up and say, boom, boom, boom. Maybe that's what's going on. Don't know. Maybe he does have something wrong. Maybe he doesn't remember, but he remembers enough now to be emphatic about these places. And there's a couple of places where we can see that he's socially aware, he's in a bind. He actually has, when his attorney does the objection, you see a slight smile of satisfaction, very slight, in his face, which means he's keenly aware they've rescued him. Then he starts to swivel. He's emphatic at one point in there about the way things are. To your point, Chase, boom, 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 telling, has all that down. And then they say, well, wait a minute. And they call him on it. Now he changes and he goes back. Look, he tries to avoid a question by saying what I would have done, not what would you have said. What did you say is where he goes and pins him down. So he's cognizant of the situation, whether he filled in these memories. And Chase, you hit it dead on earlier. It's not an edited memory when you're talking. It's the memory, because once you edit it, it is adjusted, and we adjust and fill in. This is the reason war stories are not reliable. Once four people have talked about the event and you've seen it from four angles, you incorporate all four angles into your story. And it's one of the ways we can tell that they're mostly. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. First of all, I just love it that the lawyer argues that he's not being argumentative. That's just a beautiful, beautiful moment, and really takes control of the courtroom, because really it's not his job to say I'm not being argumentative. It's for the judge to decide whether it's argumentative or not. He's got complete control. Why does he have complete control? I think everybody in that courtroom has lost the will to live at this point. Terry is absolutely, I think, defeated now at this point. We've got lots of looks down. We've got lots of out breath rather than suspended in breath. Remember, the in breath is inspired. It's in the language. It's inspired. And when you out breath, you expire. He's dead. He's on his last legs here. We see these moments of contempt in the side of his mouth. I think that's contempt for himself. I think that's probably self-loathing. That quiet voice, now not necessarily fading facts, just quieter throughout. So again, a loss of breath, a loss of support for the voice, and then lots of downward intonation, but quiet downward intonation. That's often associated with depression. And I'm not saying he's depressed. I'm saying, it's a depressing situation. It's a negative situation for him right now, and he knows it. Scott, what do you got on this one?
I agree. Yeah, you guys nailed all this stuff. So this got so, I don't want to say boring for us, because for us, this is exciting. We're really into all the little things going on with this guy. But I think people in the courtroom that are watching, at this point, they're kind of burnt. Take a look at the guy on the left who looks like an international spy with that little mustache and beard, but he's bald and he's got that suit and stuff on. He's adapting with this. He's so bored he can't hardly stand. He's over there scratching his hand. Then he takes the hit off his water bottle, and then that girl in the back, that woman in the back with the black hair and wearing the black, she's yawning, moving around. Everybody's bored with this, I think, up to this point. And another thing I noticed was that the attorney, when he's talking about him talking to his daughter, he uses the old school phone for his hand. He does that. So he kind of puts him, lets us kind of know how old he is by doing that number. And he's got his shoulders up like he's in trouble. He's doing everything that says he's trying to. It's too late to save face in this, but as Kafka said, every man must be the hero of his own story. So that's why we see him clawing to make himself still look at least decent coming out of this. But I don't think it's working for anybody. Then his attorney jumps in, yells, and says, argumentative. And then Gwyneth's attorney just kind of like talks down. Sounds like he's just talking down to him. It just, this whole thing is just a wreck, man.
The eyewitness is you.
At 6 o'clock, just 6 hours after the collision, did you tell your daughter, Shay, I'm okay? Yes?
Yes.
Asked and answered.
Thank you.
Overruled.
And then on the hill itself, with the accident having occurred just in the prior minutes, do you agree that someone asked you, "Are you okay?"
That is absolutely beyond a doubt wrong. No one spoke to me when I was needing help. No one stopped. No one.
So your testimony is Eric Christensen just sat there and looked at an unconscious man for several minutes. Is that your testimony?
Yes, he never said one word to me that I recall. Maybe when he got me up.
So Ramon, although he did try to change his deposition, did say that at one point you said, "I'm okay." Do you dispute it?
I dispute it.
Now,
I never
to
felt
dispute it,
okay.
you have to know everything you said, right? Like, I know everything I said, and I didn't say it. Are you saying you have a perfect memory of what you said on that hill just after the collision? Yes or no?
I knew.
That's an argumentative.
That's not argumentative.
Overruled.
Yes or no? Say yes or no, please.
Question again, please.
Yes. Do you agree that you do not have a perfect memory of what you told others after in the 1, 2 minutes, 3 minutes after the collision? Or do you have a perfect memory?
Well, that word is so ultimate. Perfect.
Right.
No, an answer would be no, it's not perfect.
Okay. So it's possible you said, for instance, Eric Christensen is going to testify, first witness this afternoon, that you told him, "I'm okay." Do you dispute it?
I dispute it. I never felt safe and like anybody was there to help me.
And then
I would not have said it.
He's about to testify that not only he was there, but a ski patroller duo came over. One of them came over and said, "Do you guys need any help?" or words to that effect. And that you consulted with Ramon and then said no. Do you dispute it?
I absolutely would have said no. I never said safe.
So I don't want to say what I would have said. I want to know if you remember. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay.
I don't remember.
In fact, you don't even remember that ski patrollers came by. True?
No, I do not remember that.
Yeah.
Ever.
We talked about your right eye, but your left eye also has some severe vision loss. Is that true?
No. I see 20/20 in that eye.
Did you have a cataract in that eye?
I did.
And that cataract's been removed
Yes.
since the ski collision?
Yes.
There's a report on February 4, 2015 that his vision in his left eye is decreasing, blind in right eye. Was your left eye decreasing 1 year before the ski collision?
Increasing in visual acuity or in prescription?
Decreasing. Was your left eye decreasing?
Yes. Getting less need for prescription.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so look, here's a couple of problems, I think, in this last one. First of all, if you're going to take a drink, don't have a straw in it because you're already... Look, he's in a real bind here. He's in a real bind because he's trying to say, look, I've had a traumatic head injury, but I really remember everything that I should remember that's pertinent really well. But I had a traumatic, so I'm infirm, but I'm firm enough to know the stuff that's important, and that's firm. And I was very fit at the time, but now I'm really unfit. Well, what? Too unfit to remember properly. So it's a tricky argument because he's double binded himself, or his lawyers have double binded him as well. And by picking up a drink with a straw in it, It doesn't help his case for going, here's a guy who's sharp, here's a guy who would remember, here's somebody who's confident. Like, how do you do that? How do you do, look, I've had a brain injury, but I'm sharp and confident at the same time? You need other people speaking for you. You need a lot more witnesses, and you should be so unfirm you can't even take the stand. You know, that would be the way to win this case. And it being true would probably help as well. But if it wasn't true and you wanted to win, you'd need a lot of people talking for you, and you have zero capacity to take the stand. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, however, I love a glass of water in the interrogation room. I often will give somebody a glass of water because they grab with both hands because they're afraid of this. And you can see it in him. He does it. He's not confident. And he even sets it down with both hands. That's not confidence, because he's afraid that he'll look like, you know, that the cheapest lie detector there is, looking at his palsy as he moves his hand over. Look, when he says, I see fine out of that eye, you can listen to his volume drop. And he swallows his words. He's playing Rose lawyer a little bit here until the guy says cataract. And then you watch his adapting and his breath go right through the roof and his blink rate up. He goes to that water glass. He tries at the last moment to use his professional knowledge to manage the question by asking, are you talking about prescription or acuity? He's trying to say, so he can answer it either way, and he can backhand the question. It seems like deception to me. I think the guy probably was pretty blind in that eye before he had the cataract surgery, and he's trying to hide that with a little bit of chicanery there at the very end. I wouldn't trust it. Scott, what do you got?
I'm just going to go back over all the stuff we've been talking about so far, so I'll skip on this one. Chase, what do you got?
Y'all covered a lot of what I had. The smile on his face, though, right here, might indicate that he's pleased for having devised the answer so that the attorney would have to rephrase his question. You can see the satisfaction in getting the objection here. And I think he credits himself, not his lawyers, for that. I called an optometrist today to see if this was correct. The wording of like my vision going down and this kind of thing. His name's Dr. Seller. He reworks the statement of decreasing vision to indicate his vision's getting better. And every optometrist in the country would probably say the opposite. It's going up. It's getting better. So maybe he's got an injury. I doubt it.
The eyewitness is you.
We talked about your right eye, but your left eye also has some severe vision loss. Is that true?
No. I see 20/20 in that eye.
Did you have a cataract in that eye?
I did.
And that cataract's been removed
Yes.
since the ski collision?
Yes.
There's a report on February 4, 2015 that his vision in his left eye is decreasing, blind in right eye. Was your left eye decreasing 1 year before the ski collision?
Increasing in visual acuity or in prescription?
Decreasing. Was your left eye decreasing?
Yes. Getting less need for prescription.
All right, Mark, so far, how things look to you?
Yeah, so I'm thinking about a lot of the comments that we've seen around this case and going, look, be careful with this person, be fair to this person, because maybe there is some kind of trauma, some kind of neural decline, cognitive decline. That may well be true. I can't diagnose that. Here's 3 things that I'm not seeing in him that I would really want to see in order to think that I'm seeing somebody with that kind of decline. I don't see these moments of confusion in him, which have no locus. I don't see anger in him either, and the anger is often out of the confusion, and I haven't heard any paranoia from him either. And I would want to see a few more of those things to think that he has a brain injury and some kind of neural decline. Chase, what do you think?
Yeah. Let me just walk you through the behavior profile of someone like this. In some cases, people with low self-esteem might react to situations in a more standoff, aggressive way. And this can be a defense mechanism they use to protect themselves from like a perceived threat to their self-worth. And I think a lot of this does come down to esteem, self-esteem. And some of the stress behaviors here that I would expect to see in certain places just aren't there in a couple spots here. But that could be that there's truth being woven in there, or that those little tiny segments are true. Could mean he has some bad memory problems and maybe believes it, or just he's a skilled deceiver in some of these aspects. I'll let you decide in the comments. But overall, he's suffering some kind of cognitive decline, most likely. But this could also be the onset of Alzheimer's and all kinds of other things not related to the collision at all. And him having some kind of cognitive decline does not mean that he's a victim of Gwyneth Paltrow. It could mean that they collided or he caused the accident. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, a couple of things. I would say if, in fact, he has some kind of cognitive decline, that's the attorney's job to figure out before they put him in front of this guy who masterfully interrogates him in front of a room. What he's doing is exactly what I do. Pride and ego down. Are you stupid? No, clearly you're not stupid. Then you must be able to answer this question. And then putting him on notice from a pure logic point of view. And he's creating a picture of futility. And clearly effectively did enough that the jury awarded her, not him. So what we're seeing here is an effective use of levers and ploys to get this person into a place where they cannot answer questions in any way but we saw him beaten down to the point. We saw him do the rescue thing a couple of times, and we saw him beaten down to the point that he was just starting to beat himself up rather than anything else. That's an effective use of psychological ploys, of questions, of facts to get a person to where they realize they have no control in the situation. I would have tapped out and gotten up and left and said, hey, I did it, maybe, or something. His attorneys, I'm no attorney, but I think objecting occasionally in there would have been a good idea, especially when the guy objects to his own question. I don't think he had great counsel, great representation. We'll see what the jury says about damages and whether he has to pay her court costs. Scott, what have you seen?
I think you nailed it. And for me, I don't think we're seeing cognitive decline. I think we're seeing a guy try to save his ego. I think he's that personality type where everything has to be. No, remember all the times they talked about where he said, you don't like being corrected, you don't like being ignored. All those things add up. And I think he's just trying to save his ego going through there. So I don't think, I could be completely wrong. You guys could be completely right. But I don't think it's cognitive decline. I think the guy's a you know what. And I think he's just trying to save face in there. But I think this has been, like I said at the top, a great example of refuting, regret, and acceptance, because that's what we've seen from beginning to end. He refutes something, then he regrets that he did, and then he just accepts that he did. That's why I don't think he has cognitive decline, because I think he's just, like I said 9 times before, he's just protecting his ego at that point. All right, I think this is another good one, fellas, and we'll see you next time.
So what do you got? You know what?